My father came to Ellis Island not speaking a word of English, but from a series of remarkable schools, the Bronx High School of Science and the City College of New York, he got a faculty position at the University of Illinois. That's where I started, Uni High, then undergraduate years at Cornell, PhD in physics at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and finally my own faculty position at the University of Texas at Austin. Several years after I got tenure, I started preparing teachers, tens and hundreds, and finally, as the program began to expand across the United States, thousands. But there was another voice that I started to hear, one that said that the public school system was broken, that 3 decades of per-pupil spending had doubled, achievement had been flat, and that we had to blow the system up. I wondered, was this true? And the way I approached it, because my background is in physics, was to ask, what do the data say? There was one message I got more than any other. Nothing makes sense in education, except in the light of poverty. Let's see how that works out. Let's start in my home state of Texas. There's an interesting way to look at what schools are achieving. Let's take every high school in Texas, plot the percentage of graduates with college-ready SAT or ACT scores. Now, if you just start doing that, if you put every school in the state down according to how many students they have and what percentage of students are college-ready by this measure, it doesn't make very much sense. But if you spread them out, and if you spread them out according to the amount of poverty in the school, then you see a pattern. And what that pattern says, if you put the better off students with the higher income on the left and the worse off students with the lower income on the right, is that poverty matters a lot. Now, there are claims that you hear about overcoming the influence of poverty. For example, that it presents real challenges, but even in the toughest of neighborhoods and circumstances, children excel when the right adults are doing the right things for them. Look at the graph. Look over at the lower right-hand side. Schools where poverty concentration is really high have not learned to beat poverty, at least not in Texas. And you may say, what about charter schools? You know that they're doing a great job with low-income kids. I'm highlighting the charter schools. Most of them are rescue schools just aiming to get kids to graduate from high school in any way. That's about 180 of them on the x-axis on this plot. There are some that are doing a good job leading kids towards college, but they are not beating the trend in which highly concentrated poverty causes really severe problems in schools. No Texas schools with highly concentrated poverty reach a high academic level with most students, not even the charter schools. Let's look at another way of looking at U.S. educational performance. Now let's go international. You hear that amongst 30 developed countries, the United States is ranked 25th in math, 21st in science, and even if you look at the top students, the United States is ranked last. These data come from PISA, the Program for International Student Assessment. The first thing to say about this comparison is it's true. Here are some of the data. This is mathematics for 15-year-olds, and either well-off or low income, it doesn't matter. The United States is ranked down near the bottom of the developing countries. But if you spread things out according to poverty, there is another way of looking at it. These are data on poverty that come from UNICEF that tried to figure out how much money societies are sending to their kids through taxes and transfers. PISA also broke scores of the United States students up according to the percentage of students on free and reduced lunch, and so you can divide United States students into 5 quintiles. The wealthiest, next wealthiest, third, which is just about the mean, fourth, and fifth. And if you do that, and if you compare with countries, looking in every case at the percentage of child poverty, then you find that the United States schools are actually forming a line over the top of what the rest of the world is doing. In other words, when broken out by poverty level, U.S. schools compare well with all the other countries where you can make a sensible comparison. Finally, let's take a closer look at some of the data from within the United States. And here I'm going to use the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the nation's report card, or NAEP. One thing that you hear a lot is that scores have been flatlining. So let's watch scores from 2000 to 2009 and see if they flatline. Every bubble here is a state. This, for example, is California. That is Tennessee. On the horizontal axis are scores at 8th grade for better off students. And on a vertical axis, for low-income students, those eligible for free and reduced lunch. Total number of students in a school is the size of every bubble. Let's run time forward from 2000 and see how the different states are doing. See if they're flatlining and just staying where they are. Well, if they go to the right, the better off students are getting better, And if they go up, then low-income students are doing better. And guess what? In just about every single state, both are happening. Everybody's going up. Even the little jurisdiction down at the lower left is zooming up. What's that? That's the District of Columbia. Now let's see some other states. California, Illinois. Here is Texas. And the one at the very top, after Minnesota and New Jersey, is Massachusetts. Okay, so why do we hear then that costs are doubling and scores are flatlining? One more graph to try to explain why this is true. Now once again, I've got 8th grade NAEP math scores for low-income students on the horizontal axis. But there's something else that I can put on, which is the cost per student. Utah was the lowest cost state. I've also color-coded according to teacher bargaining status, so the blue states do not have collective bargaining for teachers. Now again, we start time going and watch what happens to school performance. We'll already know it's going up, but watch what happens to cost. There are many states where the cost has remained pretty much flat in constant dollars, but there are 3 that are soaring above the top. What could those be? Well, let's see. We have New York, New Jersey, and the District of Columbia. Down at the bottom again is Utah, Idaho, and Texas has remained remarkably flat. So what lesson to draw from that? Well, turns again the conventional wisdom on its head. The scores of well-off and low-income students have been rising in just about every state since 2000. And in many states, costs have remained pretty much flat. But there are 3 exceptions, and those are New York, New Jersey, and Washington, D.C. Could it be that the stories we keep hearing about how costs are soaring have to do with the particular environment in the places where the media are situated? So, final thought. Next time someone tells you education is broken, that the schools need to be torn down, reconstituted, don't believe them. Things are a lot better than we say, and the remaining problems mainly have to do with poverty that the schools cannot cure on their own. Public schools have made us great. Be proud. Aim higher.